Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to RWBY Volume 8, Chapter 8. Also to note, the 100th episode of RWBY. It's been a few months since we got to this series, and we finished up She-Ra in the meantime, but we are finally back with more of this. And we left off on a very heavy note. Things were going kind of wrong. Salem and her forces have invaded Atlas. Penny is massively injured. Nora is massively injured. Just Oscar's still kidnapped and kind of in the process of being rescued, possibly, but just things are not going well. But now we're into the second half of the season, and we could turn this around, but I don't know if we will. This is definitely a darker season than we've had before, and I like that personally. But at the same time, it's scary. And I still stand by my previous statement that someone is going to die this season. At least one person, but possibly more. And it's going to be someone big. And Ironwood is the obvious go-to, but I think there's going to be someone else that dies. As much as I don't want that to happen, but still, I think it will. But going forward from that, I don't know what to expect at all. I do not know how this is going to end, what's going to happen. Honestly, I would not be surprised if just Atlas fell completely. And I mean that both figuratively and literally. Things are going to go bad, and I do not believe we're going to get just a clean, happy resolution to this volume. And I don't think we should. With how this series is going and with what it's focusing on, this should be a sloppy, even bad ending to this volume. This should be something that is not all clean and tidy and nice and happy. Because honestly, it wouldn't make much sense for it to be. But we'll see. Since this is also the 100th episode, I'm expecting something big to happen in this episode. Something, worth it being the 100th episode. I'm not expecting like any kind of big fan shoutouts necessarily. I'm not necessarily thinking it's going to be anything like that. I'm thinking it's going to be something more just big, narratively speaking. Something huge for the story that's currently going on. Excuse me. I don't know, though. I don't know. I luckily have avoided spoilers for this going into it, so I know nothing going forward. And hopefully it stays that way. There was a trailer that was released, but I refused to watch it because I don't want to be spoiled on anything. And honestly, RWBY trailers do spoil quite a bit. I would like to believe they don't, but they very much do. They always have. So I don't even bother. At this point. I mean, I think the only RWBY trailers that didn't spoil a lot were the character trailers. And that's only because the footage shown in them weren't actually from the show itself. But yeah. Either way, we are finally back, and I'm nervous. I'm scared as to what's going to happen. Things are going to continue to go bad, and it's going to have me on edge, but it's going to be so good in the long run. This series has just done phenomenally at the dark parts as well as the happy parts. So hopefully they continue to do their best, and hopefully, just overall, we continue to get the track record of each season being better than the last. Based on what we got in the first half of the season, I definitely think we're going to get there. But either way, like I said, I'm very excited to see what happens. So we're not going to waste any more time. We're just going to get into this. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, with that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, I'm sure you guys might remember, but I made a video talking about the theory that there was someone, that the Hound was a person. People had theorized that it could be Summer, it could be Adam, or whatever. In the end, the theory was correct that it was a person, but it was no one we knew. I talked about how I didn't like the theory because I felt it was honestly just a kind of a dumb idea. And I don't think it would really add anything to do that. Plus, like with either the Adam or Summer theory, I thought it was just a really bad idea to bring those characters into it that way. But instead, we just got some no-name who, and it's all about just showing us that this kind of thing can happen. And I still don't like it. I don't think it's like a series breaking decision. I don't think it's gonna like hurt the overall quality of RWBY or this volume even that much. But I don't like the idea of it. I think it's a dumb idea. I think it's too much. The idea that Salem can turn people into Grimm, it's like with that, it feels like just a cheap way to make her more threatening that's not needed. In fact, as I said in the other video, I think it would actually have been better and more threatening if it wasn't a person. If Salem could just make a Grimm that could have speech and is capable of just strong human-like thought processes, that it could make these kinds of decisions and whatnot, and that it had the power to transform at will and everything, that would have been more terrifying. That would have actually been more intimidating from any perspective. But instead, it just kind of went that way anyway. And I know it's not like a case where it's like, oh, the creators made it go that way just to appease to the audience who would guess it. No, they had this in mind well before the theories came out. But still, it's a dumb idea. It just does not work in my eyes. It doesn't make Salem seem more intimidating. It actually makes her seem less. It makes her seem less strong. Which, if that was the point they were going for as well, like that would be really weird. Especially in the middle of this big old war that's currently going on. You definitely want to make your villains seem stronger, not weaker. But by telling us that, this basically tells us that she could not make a Grimm like this on her own, just by herself, that she needed to use a person to do it. And of course, it brings up the possibility of, will she end up turning someone we know and love into a Grimm? It's possible. Hell, it's possible that Ironwood might end up becoming a Grimm. But we also don't know how this works. She mentioned it was an experiment, and we don't know if the person had to be dead beforehand or if they would still be alive. and we're just like kind of corrupted by all that. We don't know. We have no idea how this works. So there's a lot more questions than anything right now. But yeah, I still don't like this. I don't think it's a good idea. And again, like I said, it makes Salem look weaker. But either way, that was only one of the things about this episode. There is a lot that happened. So, I mean, we see that Watts ends up being broken out by Cinder in the end. We didn't see Robin or Crow among the wreckage, so they might still be down and maybe unconscious at the moment. We'll have to see where that goes. Um, but then it's like it's kind of a win-lose situation because with the Hound, they managed to kill the Hound, and it's like Salem's forces got Watts back, which is actually kind of good for us, all things considered, because that means he won't be working with Ironwood anymore. But unfortunately, that also means he will be working for Salem again. So kind of a win-lose situation there. Um, but yeah, on the other hand, we had the Hound destroyed, so that's a win for our heroes. But then Penny is having trouble keeping her wits about her. She's continuously being like taken over by the programming that Watts used. So she's kind of flipping back and forth. Even with Nora coming to and helping her calm down at one point, it still didn't help forever. She's getting worse, and if nothing is changed, it's going to be bad. Whitley and them are helping as well. Whitley and Willow, they're helping to rescue the people with Whitley's plan. So there's still more going on there, and Whitley is proving himself to understand how big of a deal everything that's going on is. And he's succeeding in everything he needs to be succeeding in. So he's becoming good. I can dig it. It's like we're starting to actually like this kid. um, oh, also Jacques was another one in the prison who we didn't see like get up after that. I forgot he was still there too. I tend to ignore him most of the time. Because honestly, I don't give a shit. Um, but yeah, that like we also saw another new Grim. This creepy, glowy. I don't know if it was supposed to be acid or poison or whatnot, but I guess it doesn't really matter. But this creepy bug creature that Blake was fighting and Ruby took out in the end. Um, yeah, it's just so much. We got a moment with Ruby and Blake as well. Blake admitting that she's always looked up to Ruby despite being older, and it's like it was a nice moment. Some people will try to use it to fuel the ship, but we already like know that Blake and Yang. It's already been made very obvious they're a thing. So they basically blatantly said it. It was still a nice moment though, nonetheless, and it was great to see just that kind of just nice moment. um, yeah, I really did enjoy it. My hair is not cooperating. Um, but yeah, there's just so much going on. It's like Willow, we got to see a different side of her. They getting to see her excessively panicked, like which is like kind of how I would be in that situation, honestly. I'm not good at handling shit like that. Like I would panic easily. And granted, obviously I've never been in a situation like that, but I get panicked really easily when I'm scared, and so it's like I would be freaking out as well. I won't lie, I won't argue. It is good to see Nora is recovering though, thanks to Klein. So that's a big plus. Um, May is out there doing what she can to help and everything, but yeah, we didn't get to see anything of Ironwood. We didn't get to see any other like big check-ins with other characters, like Yang and them, Yang, Jean, Ren, all of them who are going into the into Monstra. We didn't get to check in with them either. Um, and I'm fine with what the episode was. I'm just wondering what's up with them at the moment. Um, but either way, this episode, it was big. It was a huge deal to find out the truth about the Hound, even if I didn't like it. If I still think it was a terrible decision on their part. But again, not bad enough to actually ruin the series or even the volume, but still. Um, but it didn't feel like a big special 100th episode. So I think the only real big special part about it is the fact that it is the first episode back after the hiatus. Um, because otherwise it's like I mean, it was a good episode and it was important. It was big in terms of what was happening, but it, like when you think of 100th episode, you think of like some kind of really big special thing. Um, and it didn't feel as special as it could have. I'm just saying for a 100th episode. But just in general, it was still amazing. It was still really great. Had some awesome moments for pretty much everyone who was there. So yeah, it did just focus heavily on one specific plot point most of the time, with a couple other things briefly, briefly looked in on. And that's fine. That's all good. So tell me in the comments below, though, what you thought of this episode of RWBY Volume 8. And glad to be back. Very glad to be back. As always, these will be once a week, every Saturday. So hope you're into it with me, and that we'll just continue to enjoy this amazing series. One of my favorites of all time. So for now, yeah, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.